mummy's with the maggots now.
Death has come to your little town, Sheriff.
Well, hi there.
Hello, and welcome to Would You Die, the show where... You believe in this? What am I, an idiot? I'm making a buck here. You want books? I got books. I got chicken blood. I got dog embryos. I got black candles. I got wolfbane. Look at this. Silver bullets. Some joker ordered them. 30 out of 6. Never picked them up. I take Bank AmeriCard, American Express, Visa. You gonna buy that or what? I'm Austin Torres.
And I'm Anneliese Petersmark.
And I think that was the longest quote I've done for this gag.
It was.
But when that when we're watching this film, this mystery film, that if you clicked play and you looked at the title, you already know what film we're talking about. But when that happened, I had to rewind it. I'm like, that was so good.
Yeah, it was a very, very... It was probably my favorite quote of the whole movie. Yeah, loved that. Glad you used it, even if it was 10 minutes of our episode already.
Well, I was going to do a different quote, but I'm like, I can't. I have to go with my heart on this one.
So if you didn't get it, we are talking about The Howling from 1981 during this episode. Ow.
And we have a special announcement to make.
We do, because you've asked for it. We're providing it. We now have producer Jeremy on mic.
Hello.
It was very timid of you.
You finally have an opportunity for the masses to hear your voice. How does that make you feel?
I'm excited about it. Most of my little comments are really made for my benefit because I find myself funny, but I'm glad that everybody else gets to hear it now too.
It's really good.
You hear that, America? Now you're the judge. Comment and let us know if Jeremy's funny.
Please let us know in brutally honest detail what jokes you thought landed, what didn't. He'll workshop it. No, but in honor of Jeremy finally getting a microphone, we did decide that for today's synopsis, we were going to have him read it directly from Amazon. Spoiler alert for The Howling, 1981, if you have not watched it. However, this synopsis, I'm just going to say it right now. Whoever is writing the Amazon Prime synopses, I think, I have a sneaking suspicion based on this that it might be AI, but I don't want to accuse anybody of anything. They're on something. So I'm just going to let him take it away.
So the synopsis of this film, according to Amazon, is a television newswoman reporting on a story goes to a psychiatric retreat for those recovering from sexual abuse. Once she is there, she knows something is not right in this very weird place. The reason is ... Everyone there is a werewolf.
Which, while technically true, does sound like a child wrote it. And that's all. That's all.
That's okay. I'm going to spoil The Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
In case people listening haven't seen one of the most popular movies of all time. You never know.
That's
you never
true.
know.
That's fair.
We got to cover our asses, right? Anyways, that's like writing a synopsis for The Empire Strikes Back. Luke Skywalker and the Rebellion are on the run from the Empire, and lo and behold, Darth Vader has a secret. He's Luke's dad.
Not only that, but Darth Vader has a secret in this very weird place. ... He's Luke's dad.
Right.
Yeah, that's the plot twist. That's the big thing at the end. I mean...
And Luke has to find the great Jedi Master Yoda, but looks aren't as they always seem to be ... It's the Muppet.
It's the Muppet. Oh, man. Anyway, shouts out Jim Henson.
Shouts out George Lucas.
Him too, I suppose.
Shouts out everyone involved with the Empire, which came out a year before The Howling.
True.
1980 to 1981.
So anyway, we're going to talk about The Empire Strikes Back today. Really hope you were all expecting this for Werewolf Wednesdays.
Boba Fett.
Back to The Howling. What is your personal connection with The Howling? When do you remember watching it for the first time? What's your history with it?
So, my history with The Howling is more recent than some. Well, actually, my history with The Howling is similar to Ginger Snaps.
Okay.
Whereas I watched it for the first time in 2020 when I was preparing for the werewolf episode of Would You Die back like 15 iterations of Would You
Right.
Die ago when it was a YouTube show. I watched a bunch of werewolf movies. That was the first time I watched Ginger Snaps. A couple others. With me, The Howling has always been paired with American Werewolf in London,
Okay, interesting.
which is one of my favorite films of all time.
Mhm.
I'm going to shout out my friend and filmmaker David B. Jacobs, who's been on Would You Die in the past because he's part of the Cadaver Dogs podcast.
Yeah.
I want to shout out my homies at Cadaver Dogs, David and Devin, but specifically David because American Werewolf is one of his favorite films. We're not talking about that film, but to me they're intertwined because American Werewolf in London and The Howling came out in the same year, 1981. They both have these amazing transformation scenes that just changed special effects
Yeah, definitely.
and werewolf films, but American Werewolf in London is the more successful one.
Yes.
I think it overshadows The Howling, and I bring that up because I grew up with American Werewolf in London. I saw a clip of that when I was 10, one of those things that changed my life. I saw The Howling as like a 24, 25-year-old adult. So I still very much like I very much like the movie and appreciate it. That being said, it feels like I hesitate to say it this way because it's kind of an asshole thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyways because I can't think of a better way to put it. It's like the little brother.
That's fair.
Even though I'm pretty sure The Howling came out a few months before Werewolf in London.
Yeah, I definitely agree that comparing those two movies makes a lot of sense and putting them together, not necessarily comparing, quality or makeup or anything, but yeah, putting them together makes a lot of sense in terms of, where in the timeline they fall. So yeah, I like that a lot, actually.
And tonally, they're not too separate. Like, they're both horror movies, first and foremost, but they're funny.
For sure.
I think American Werewolf in London's funnier. I think The Howling just has a different sense of humor, though.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? More of a satire kind of funny.
I think The Howling uses humor to make points a lot.
Yeah.
Rather than in a lot of horror movies, you'll see people use humor to bring levity to like darker moments. I think The Howling doesn't necessarily do that. It uses humor to kind of make its points for it.
Yeah.
In a way.
I think that's a great way to put it. So how about you? What is your relationship with The Howling?
So like many of the movies from this month, I'm pretty sure I only had seen one of the movies for this month beforehand, and that one was Teen Wolf, obviously. And so, like, same deal. I literally watched this movie for the first time this morning. So
Nice.
I watched it with producer Jeremy. So producer Jeremy has actually seen one of the movies from this month. Isn't that crazy?
Woo woo.
Yep. Shouts out.
Sometimes I want to be part of the program,
I want to be where the podcast hosts are.
So I had never seen it before today. We'll get more into details with this later, but I was really surprised. I think just because of when this movie came out. This movie came out in 81.
Yep.
A lot of campy horror movies from this time period. And not that this wasn't, but I was very surprised at how many dark themes this movie dealt with.
Yeah.
In like really interesting and kind of progressive ways. Like, I don't know that it's necessarily like the most progressive movie, but it is like for the time very, very well done in terms of handling some of these more sensitive topics.
Right. And I think what's really impressive about it is this is Joe Dante's second film. and it's a film that feels like a movie. No,
It's a movie that feels like a movie.
it feels like someone who, with a lot of experience, made it.
Yeah, definitely. I was reading an interview, it was an article, but it was called The Oral History of the Howling, and it was an interview with him and other people who worked on the movie. Let me see if I can find it so I can actually get names. But he was talking about how this movie kind of came together almost haphazardly, which is really interesting because it doesn't feel that way when you're watching it. Yeah, so the interview was called Primal Scream, An Oral History of the Howling, and it was a 40th anniversary legacy talk where they just kind of all sat down round table style, and it was Joe Dante, John Sayles, Dee Wallace, Robert Picardo, Mike Fennell, Mark Goldblatt, and Robert Ramey. And so it was a lot of, the producer, the director, the screenwriter, and some of the actors were all sitting together talking about it. And yeah, it was everything really fell together, kind of right place, right time. Certain people were signed on to other movies, and when they got asked, and the movie that they were signed on to before fell apart just in time for them to take this movie. And it was a lot of that. And I don't think any of them really realized the scale of what they would be working on until they got to set and were making the movie, which is really interesting. So.
And it's funny because, you mentioned how people wanted to do it, but then they couldn't, and then all of a sudden they could, and then it went the opposite way, too. Legendary effects maker Rick Baker was originally going to do The Howling.
I didn't know that.
And Rick Baker won the first competitive makeup award, Academy Award, I should say. First competitive makeup Academy Award for American Werewolf in London.
Oh, crazy. Okay.
He was supposed to do The Howling.
And he ended up doing...
And
that's
he did
so funny.
Werewolf in London. And the story... What happened was, American Werewolf in London and The Howling are just intertwined in so many different ways.
Right.
John Landis, who wrote and directed American Werewolf in London, asked Rick Baker to do the effects for him years before the film actually got made. And it took John Landis 10 years to get the funding, to get the green light, to get everything he needed to make and to write it, to make American Werewolf in London. He was working on that for 10 years. So when Joe Dante he gets to do The Howling, and it's coming together fairly quickly, he's like, well, I'm going to ask Rick Baker to do my werewolf picture because,
Right.
American Werewolf in London is not going to happen. It's been 10 years. It'll happen, but there's time to make my werewolf movie, too.
Right.
And then, of course, he asked Rick Baker. Rick Baker says, yes, I'll do it. I want to make a werewolf movie. Now John Landis finds the money. Now things are moving with that. So Rick Baker, I'm like, well, I told John I'd do it, his movie, a long time ago. I have to back out and honor the original promise. And Joe Dante's like, that's honorable. It's fine. So I believe at the time, one of Rick Baker's assistants, who ended up being Rob Bottin, he does the effects for The Howling. And Rob Bottin later goes on to do John Carpenter's The Thing.
Okay.
Which is probably the most, groundbreaking practical effects movie ever.
Yeah.
And that came out in 1982.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really interesting how much I didn't even realize how intertwined those movies were. I mean, other than the obvious parallels of they're both werewolf movies, they both came out in 1981, but yeah, they're very feeding off of each other in terms of
really right.
Yeah.
And Rob Bottin, he's 21 at the time.
Wow.
He's 20, and the effects in The Howling are so good.
Mm-hmm.
They are obviously the werewolf transformation, that is worth the price of admission alone. But I'm thinking about the scene where Terry cuts off one of the wolf's arms, and then it turns into a human hand, and it's bubbling and it's so gross. I love it.
Horrifying.
I think Lisa's term was boiling.
Boiling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it. Yeah. I like bubbling. That's a little less harsh than boiling.
I mean,
but
it
you're
looked
right.
like it was
boiling is better.
It's horrifying. Yeah, oh God, just terrifying. But yeah, excellent effects, especially for obviously the turn of the decade. In terms of like historical context for how this movie came about, there had not really been any successful werewolf movies since about the 1940s with the Wolfman, which is like the werewolf movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that was coming out at the same time as a lot of the different creature features like Dracula and Frankenstein and other really obvious ones that for some reason I can't think of off of the top of my head. But the Wolfman was kind of both the origin of like the werewolf myth in cinema. I mean, it wasn't the first werewolf movie, but it was one of the most popular probably at the time.
I think it still might be the most popular.
I think probably. I would assume. But because it was kind of impossible to live up to, there had not been a ton of like super successful ones until 1981. And you got hit with the double whammy of American Werewolf and The Howling. The Howling came first.
And I think there was a third too.
Yes, there are other
but that's more like, I think it was Wolfen or Company of Wolves.
Yeah,
it's one of those two. I think it was Wolfen. I mean, it should get some credit because it still came out in the same year.
Right, for sure.
But people really talk about American Werewolf in London and The Howling.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think those two films are like brothers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so with, this was kind of the start of that again. There were a couple kind of unsuccessful attempts, or less successful attempts, I should say, in the 70s. Mm-hmm. But this was really the first one in a long time that people were paying attention to.
Yeah.
It was based on a book by Gary Bradner of the same name, but when the script was first written, they basically took the book and the name of the book and just kind of ran with that and didn't really insert a lot of plot into it from the book. But eventually, as they went through rewrites, they were like, this is completely unbelievable. And there's this really good quote that I found when I was, reading that oral history, where John Sayles says, what if this is a movie where the characters have actually seen a horror movie? And so they incorporated more elements from the books of kind of more like the savvy of some of the characters. And so I really enjoyed that. And we'll kind of get into parts where that I think rings true as we get further into the topic. But yeah.
And they're watching the Wolfman at one point.
Yeah, literally. The Wolfman is on the TV when Chris and Terry are talking on the phone with Karen. So
right, and it's like the scene where whoever gets bit by the werewolf and lives, shall too become a werewolf. The one woman, I forget her name, and
it's when she's talking to Karen about the fact that Bill has just been bitten. It's literally like she gets off the phone, she says, Bill just got bitten by a wolf, and then it flashes to the TV with the Wolfman saying, like, the woman from the Wolfman saying that line.
Is this a good time to talk about the man, the myth, the legend, Dick Miller, and his role as the occult bookseller?
Please.
Because
I feel like that's a pretty obvious parallel. So
well, like, I mean, the quote I said earlier today, earlier in the episode, that's from the Dick Miller character. And I think as we're talking about, like, this is a film where the characters in the movies have seen a horror movie. They're like, well, what do you need? Silver bullets? And Dick Miller's character, like, yeah, that or fire. It's the only way to get rid of them.
Yeah, I love the interesting character that he kind of brings, because he very much admits that he doesn't necessarily believe in all of these things, but he's also an expert on all of these things.
Yeah, like, he's read his book, he's read his inventory.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting, because I feel like in a lot of horror movies, when you have like the occult bookstore or horror TV shows, right? Like, I'm thinking about in the later seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, this is like not a huge spoiler, but when they like leave high school,
the fuck?
The school librarian, who's also like the watcher and in charge of them, Rupert.
Is that Giles?
It's Giles, yeah.
Giles.
He, like, they have to have, for plot reasons, a place where he can be, because he can no longer be the school librarian because a bunch of adult, like, people in their early
Right.
20s can't go back to the school library. So he ends up buying a bookstore, like an occult bookstore. And so I think it's really interesting because it's like when you normally see like the occult bookstore owner, you think of somebody who fully believes in everything that they're selling, or you're like, I'm here to make a quick buck and I don't know anything. You know, it's usually
Right.
one extreme or the other. Whereas this guy is like, oh yeah, I don't believe in any of this crap, but I know my shit, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
And I just find that to be such an interesting dynamic to have in a character.
Exactly. It's like, yeah, I can tell you everything in this book from beginning to end. You gonna buy it or what?
Hmm.
And there's a lot of books in there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and he's in like a lot of stuff. by
Oh
the
yeah,
way.
he's a legendary character.
He's
actor.
like, and he was in like, for the first part of his career, he was basically exclusively in Roger Corman movies.
Yes.
Which I find really, really fun. Like, he just basically worked with the same director for like 7 years in like tons of movies, like Gunslinger and Little Shop of Horrors, and
Mhm.
all of those.
I think Bucket of Blood
yeah,
is
Bucket
one
of
he
Blood
got
is
a
in there.
lead. He was the lead in.
Which, yeah, Bucket of Blood is one that he got the lead in. Yeah, I'm just looking at his credits now. That's really interesting. And then he like went and did one movie with somebody else and then came back to Roger Corman, and then did a couple movies for somebody else and then came back to Roger Corman. It's just very funny.
But then he started doing movies with the Roger Corman disciples, if
Yeah.
you will, with Joe Dante.
Yes.
But Dick Miller's in all of Joe Dante's movies.
Mm-hmm.
Gremlins, obviously, he plays Mr. Futterman.
Yes.
He's in The Burbs. I mean, Small Soldiers, all of them. He's in the original
Piranha.
Terminator.
Oh, yeah, you're right,
Which is
he
not
is.
Joe Dante, but James Cameron was
Mm-hmm.
got his start under Roger Corman. So yeah,
He had a small part in the Twilight Zone movie
yeah,
from '83. Yeah.
yeah. Because Joe Dante had a segment
Mm-hmm.
in that.
Yeah.
I think the Howling led. We're gonna switch from Dick Miller to Joe Dante for a second,
Mm-hmm.
because you bring up the Twilight Zone movie. That was a Steven Spielberg production.
Right.
He had seen the Howling and decided he liked Joe Dante.
Yeah.
So he brought him and a couple of, I think it was either, I don't know. It was either Toby Hooper or George Romero.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was George Romero. Anyways, Joe Dante's part of that little director crew. I'm not going to get into the Twilight Zone movie, but that production was not good. A tragedy occurred,
Yes.
but Steven Spielberg, I guess, really liked Joe Dante
Mm-hmm.
from The Howling and from Piranha, and from his work on Twilight Zone movie. Gives him Gremlins.
Yeah. Gremlins, huge.
You make a Gremlins, you are set for life,
Well, yeah. And then he made Gremlins too.
which is an amazing movie and also has Dick Miller.
And then he made Looney Tunes Back in Action, which is his crowning achievement.
And I think Dick Miller's in that too.
He might be.
I haven't seen that movie since I was a kid. I know Matthew Lillard's in that movie because I see the same clip from it on my Facebook reels every so often.
Yeah.
And on TikTok. But yeah, and I probably shouldn't say set for life because I don't know about that. But I don't think Joe Dante had to make any other movies after making Gremlins. I think he could retire after that.
This is also...
And luckily he didn't because I love him and his work.
This is also like kind of a non sequitur, but I was really obsessed for a really long time with like the remake of Hawaii Five-0.
Uh-huh.
And Joe Dante did like a bunch of episodes.
Oh, he did?
He directed a bunch of episodes of the new Hawaii Five-0. And a lot of like the best episodes of the new Hawaii Five-0. So
that's cool.
Shouts out to Joe Dante.
Joe Dante is someone who likes to work with the same people.
Yeah.
Because Belinda Balaski, who plays Terry,
Yeah.
she's in all of his movies too.
Yeah.
Like she's the mom in Gremlins with the two little kids, and like, Mommy, I'm hungry. It's like, I know. And then Miss Deagle, because she's a fucking bitch. Miss Deagle's like, well, I guess you know what to ask Santa for Christmas. Food? I'm about to get angry. We're not doing this right now. I'm about to get angry.
This is not a Gremlins podcast episode.
No, but I just like how Joe Dante was doing the Mike Flanagan like 30 years before Mike Flanagan.
Yeah, real. Yeah, Mike Flanagan or Ryan Murphy.
Yeah.
Ryan Murphy always works with like the same 5 people, no matter what genre of thing he's doing.
James Gunn is the same way.
Yeah.
Oh, James Gunn did this? Where's Nathan Fillion?
That's so real. But yeah, I mean, I think like obviously Ryan Murphy worked with like a bunch of the same casts over and over again with American Horror Story, but then he like followed that up with like just taking all of his, well, first of all, he took all of his Glee people and put them in American Horror Story, and then he took all of his American Horror Story and Glee people and put them in the one that he did about who was it? Gianna, the fashion designer. Can't think of what it's called. It doesn't matter. None of this is important. I'm gonna stop talking.
Werewolves.
Werewolves.
Awoo.
Ow. Okay, back to werewolves. Now that we've done all of our segues.
Yeah, we geeked out over the character actors. Actually, no. One more character actor we gotta geek out about.
Cool.
I forgot John Carradine was in this movie. I love him.
Why? Like,
He's in a lot of stuff.
yeah, we were looking him up earlier, right? This is the one who is in Star Trek?
He's in the 10 Commandments.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know exactly who this is.
And
then.
he's in a bunch of, maybe not a bunch, but he was in like The Invisible Man Returns, House of Dracula,
Yeah.
I think House of Frankenstein, like The Black Cat, I think. He's in a good chunk of the classic Universal movies. But he's just like, if you like older cinema, you've seen John Carradine. You know who that is.
Yeah,
He's in a lot of TV too.
He was Mr. Gateman in The Munsters.
Yeah.
That's like how, I know that's like silly, but that's how I know him. Now that I've like put a face to a name, yeah, he was the mortician in The Munsters.
But yeah, I saw him. I'm like, John Carradine's in this? I forgot that.
You were thinking of, we looked at Robert Picardo, who plays Eddie Quist, and he is in like 1,000 iterations of Star Trek as the Doctor.
Right. I forgot about that.
Is he going to be at Motor City Comic Con?
That's a great question.
I think he is. We'll look that up later.
This is not important. But it is to us.
It is to it was real to me. What am I quoting? What?
You're quoting fucking Black Widow.
Am I real? Oh,
Yelena.
yeah, I am. It was real to me. Why do I know that? I've
don't
only seen the
know.
movie once.
Because it was a meme.
It was a meme. Florence Pugh.
God, Florence. Love her. Let's talk about Florence Pugh instead of werewolves. Anyway.
She
no.
should be in the Howling.
She should. We should do a remake with her as Karen.
One more thing about the actors in this movie that I just don't think is going to come up again is when I was looking into it, Dee Wallace and Christopher Stone, who played the two main characters in this movie.
Karen and Billy.
They were married in real life. And they are known for co-starring in like every
Everything.
horror movie. Like they were in this, they were in Cujo together.
Yeah,
They're
he was in
of this
Cujo.
stuff.
That's right.
But the other thing that they are known for, so they did all these horror films, and then the other thing that they are known for is the leads of the show The New Lassie for some reason.
I did not know that.
I forgot that we talked about this morning. Yeah. They're like in the Lassie remake.
I didn't know that. But it's kind of a sad story though, because Christopher Stone, he passed away.
Yes.
So, but yeah, they did a lot of stuff together. That was an iconic pairing.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot he was in Cujo. He's good in Cujo too.
Yeah.
Is he good in Cujo, or am I just thinking of the fact that he's playing a trombone in bed?
I mean, both things can be true.
You know how hard it is to play any brass instrument, like laying down on your back?
At
you do,
minimum.
because you're a brass player.
Yeah, I do.
At minimum, he's good at playing the trombone in Cujo. Is he good in Cujo? We don't know, but he's good at playing the trombone in Cujo.
Definitely.
And that's,
He is good in Cujo, though.
and that's the kind of comedy you can come to expect now that Jeremy has a mic. So, talking about how this relates and how this pertains to Werewolf Wednesdays, besides the fact that it is about werewolves and it's called the Howling Owl. So we've talked a lot this month, and this is kind of our recap episode because it's our last episode of the month, which it's crazy to me that we're already ending month 2 of this. This has been wild.
This is episode
3.
9.
Month 2.
Month 2, yeah.
Yeah, I can do math.
Yeah.
I got it.
We're almost into the double digits.
I know, crazy. Episode 10 is going to be wild. Anyway, but talking about like how it kind of relates to the werewolf myth. So we have talked a lot about how a lot of these episodes emphasize a lack of control when it comes to the werewolf.
Yeah.
You know, Ginger Snaps and Teen Wolf kind of focus on the puberty aspect of the werewolf and how it is about, you know, I mean, obviously Michael J. Fox's character has a little bit more control over when he gets to turn, but the fact that he has this curse and the fact that anger affects it and high emotions is still very real and present in that. Werewolves 2024, it's put on by the blood moon or the harvest moon, whatever.
The super moon.
The super moon, that's what it is. I always want to call it the blood moon.
And
It's
those werewolf designs are very much inspired by these werewolves in the Howling.
Right. But it's brought on by this unhelpable thing. Even with the Wolf of Snow Hollow, this is a mentally ill man who is kind of acting on his baser urges. He does not have a lot of control. That's the difference with the Howling. The Howling, the unique aspect about this one is they have total control over when they turn and like if they turn. Now, don't get me wrong, we do see like some element of the lack of control with becoming a werewolf because you don't get a choice if you get bitten. But once you are one and you've bought in, you get the choice, you get the freedom. And that is something that, again, they emphasized in that interview that they really wanted to have as part of this is about that freedom of choice and how people use it.
And to kind of like further your point, they are in control when they are werewolves.
Yes. Yeah, like they know what is going on.
It's less of like they can't control their primal functions and more they are, what's the word I'm looking for? Like not engaging with, what's the word I'm looking for?
Restraining themselves?
No, not restraining. It's less that they are giving into their like beast, like their primal urges. They're more, God, podcasting's hard, guys.
I have no idea what you're trying to say.
What is the word I'm trying to think of? I want to say engaging, but that's not the right word. It's like indulging.
Yeah.
They are indulging their primal urges.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like in like Ginger Snaps, Ginger can't help herself. She wants to, she's trying to, but and sometimes she's not. Sometimes she indulges because it feels good and she is a fucking force of nature. I'm sorry. No, she's a goddamn force of nature.
She is a goddamn force of nature.
But she's still like, she's fighting it, you know?
Yeah.
These werewolves in the Howling, they are in control of their murderous urges, their sexual urges. They just choose to indulge.
Right. I was trying to find the quote. I can't. But from the very end of the movie, where Karen gets on the newscast, and one of the things that she is talking about is the thing that separates man from beast is the idea that we all have these baser urges and we get to choose whether or not we conform to those baser urges.
Right.
And that's like the thesis of the movie right there, you know, and they go into that throughout the entire time that we are, at least the entire time that we are with the colony. So the colony, just to give a brief, like more in-depth kind of way we get here and steps we get here. Karen is a reporter for the news, and she goes undercover to try to lure this guy who has been raping and killing women. And his name is, or he is called Eddie Eddie the Mutilator, I think. Something like that.
I don't know why I was going to say Eddie the Muncher.
Oh, God. Ew.
I don't like that.
Context. Anyway, ew.
I don't like that.
I think it's Eddie the Mutilator, but I could be wrong. Anyway, the point is his name is Eddie. He is raping and killing all of these women.
Quist.
Eddie Quist. We don't know his last name yet, though.
Oh, my bad.
It's okay. But she kind of lures him, and the heist doesn't go as well as it's supposed to. He ends up getting shot a bunch of times. She ends up severely traumatized from the entire interaction. He very much like I don't actually, we don't know exactly how far it gets, but it's implied that he has at the very least sexually harassed her and was about to perform rape on her. And so it is like she leaves this interaction very traumatized. And because of this, the doctor, whose name is Dr. George Wagner, recommends that she goes and spends time in his colony for help with like mental help needs. And so she goes to this colony, and it's a very interesting amalgamation of people.
Yeah,
I would say.
definitely. You got John Carradine.
Yep.
Who's like a sailor.
Mm-hmm.
You got the quirky husband and wife.
Yep. And then you have...
Do you want to talk about Marcia?
We should talk about Marcia. So then you have Marcia. And the colony is really interesting because it's kind of filled with these like backwoods, like hippie type people. And Marcia seems to be kind of not necessarily the leader, but somebody everybody knows.
It's interesting because like the Dr. Wagner appears to be the leader.
Yeah.
But Marcia's the one that everyone respects.
Exactly.
And you get that feeling immediately.
Yeah. And even through all of, like, the first scene with the colony is so interesting to me because a lot of things happen. First of all, we have Marcia, who immediately tries to flirt with Bill. Like, she is on him like white on rice, you know?
I think it's like, I should get back to my wife. And she goes, why?
Literally, like, why? And then the quirky suburban husband and wife combo, whose names I forget, they are immediately like, yeah, she's a nympho. Like, she's a nymphomaniac. Yeah. And then the doctor is like, no, she just has these urges that she needs to control. Like, it's not a big deal. And in the middle of that scene, Marcia walks up and hands Dr. Wagner a book and says, I don't want my brother reading this crap. And it's implied to be like this self-help book.
Right.
And then walks away. And so obviously we don't get context for what that really means until much later, but it is a really interesting scene because you can tell that despite the fact that she is very much in this community, she's not necessarily buying what the doctor is selling.
Right.
So it really sets up that interesting tension immediately. Again, this is a movie where the characters have seen a horror movie before. So we already know, and Karen and Bill honestly already know, that there's something weird about this place. Like, they're not stupid. This is not like pretty much any other movie where you see a weird cult thing happening and you're like, this couple's really dumb and they're just gonna go do it, and you just suspend disbelief.
Right.
It is very much like they know right away something's weird. They kind of go anyway because they trust the doctor.
They trust the doctor.
Yeah.
Right.
But they know that something's strange.
Right. And like, it's one of those things where it's like, you're in that situation. It's like, they're on edge, you know, they're not like dismissive of the situation.
No, they very much know that there's like some weird stuff going on.
Bill's interesting.
Yeah.
He's a very interesting character.
Mm-hmm.
Because he becomes dismissive.
Yeah.
After a certain point.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about the men in this movie is how kind of dismissive they all are. The first example that we kind of see of this is her boss. Karen's boss, Fred, immediately after she has this really traumatic experience is like, get on stage, talk about it. And then when she can't, he like pulls her off stage, and then another reporter takes over and he goes, now that's a professional. Like, that's somebody who's professional.
Right.
And he's very dismissive of like everything that she's been through.
Well, it's like when, even in the very beginning of the movie, when they're in the adult video store, and there's a shootout where they kill Eddie, the mutilator, not the muncher.
The mutilator.
The mutilator.
I think.
The cops, like, you know, kill him, save Karen, and the adult video store owner is just like, I knew I shouldn't have let that broad in there.
Right, like it's her fault.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's her fault.
It's her fault that this man came in and made her watch a movie where they're explicitly raping somebody, and then was about to do the same to her. Yeah. And then it's very much implied, like, at the beginning of the movie, Bill is this very caring and, like, you know, respectful man. And as the movie goes on, you get these little digs, even before he becomes completely dismissive. Like, the very beginning, her name's Karen White, I believe, and he is Bill somebody else.
Steele or Bill Neal or
Bill
something.
Neal or something like that, I think.
It's a different last name.
And he, like, says, they call him Mr. White, and he goes, oh, no, it's Neal. She uses her maiden name. And the people look at him funny because, you know, this is the 80s and that's what happens.
Right. I mean, I feel like you get funny looks now if you did that.
Even so, yeah. I mean, like, we have a friend who uses her maiden name and, like, still gets mail addressed to Mrs. I'm not going to say their last name.
Right.
But Mrs. husband's last name, and they've been married for 5 years, even though, like, you know, in the age of social media, you can see she hasn't changed her last name, like, you know, things.
Right.
Like, it's still not the norm for sure. But as the movie goes on and as she is dealing with this, like, horrific trauma, it's, like, kind of implied that he's getting kind of sick of her not engaging in sex with him because of the fact that every time she tries, she has these terrible flashbacks.
Right.
And it leads to him getting in some trouble.
Yeah, because he starts to, like, go on, like, hunting trips with the boys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
then he ends up killing the rabbit, and he gets told to bring it to Marcia.
Well, this is after he gets bit by the werewolf.
No.
No?
No. He goes to Marcia first, then gets bit, then goes
Then
to
he
Marcia again.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So he has this rabbit, he goes to Marcia.
Because she makes a move on him.
Yes, and then
And
Marcia's
he's like, no.
I'll cook it later, and puts the rabbit down and goes to kiss him, and he immediately is like, get off of me, goodbye. And leaves.
I'm married. Don't touch me, I'm married.
Exactly.
What
He
was
says
that?
it.
Pearl. I referenced Pearl.
Yeah.
Sometimes I say shit and I don't, like, sometimes I'm referencing a movie and I don't know I'm doing it. And I'm like, what am I referencing?
You're referencing something. But yeah, it's Pearl. But Bill says it first. Like, that's where that came from. Is Bill says it in that tone of voice. He goes, "Don't touch me, I'm married," in the high pitched voice.
Don't touch me, I'm married.
Exactly.
That's my purse.
I don't know you. That's King of the Hill. That's not the same.
Pearl and King of the Hill are the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how to make that work. We're going to move on.
Let's go back to the Howling. So anyway, ultimately, Marcia makes a move on him. He ends up bitten by a werewolf.
I think it was Marcia.
What?
I think so.
I think so too.
Because as producer Jeremy spoiled for us earlier using the Amazon synopsis, it's a colony of werewolves.
They're all werewolves.
Well, and that's what makes the place weird.
Oh, God. Anyway. So then we get this really interesting and entirely too long sequence by the bonfire where they decide to engage in an act of togetherness.
Werewolf sex. Werewolf sex. Werewolf sex. That was almost my opening gag. I almost started the show with "Welcome to Would You Die," the show where we talk about werewolf sex. I'm Austin Torres.
In fairness, it starts as human sex.
That's true.
It does, but then they get freaky, and I don't mean like. I'm not judging kind of freaky. I mean, like, the teeth are coming out and the eyes are getting all monstery.
For the last half of this movie, anytime Bill was on screen, Jeremy would go, Bill, 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 Bill Nye the werewolf guy. And I just feel like that's really important for you all to know.
I love that.
But yeah, so Bill becoming really dismissive of Karen and kind of not really wanting to deal with her trauma anymore leads to him getting bit and then leads to werewolf sex. And that's
right.
You know, you can feel however you want to feel about that, but that's what happens.
And I'm not saying Bill's a good guy.
No.
But it is interesting, like, pre-werewolf bite, he does not give in to his primal urges.
Yes.
I'm a good guy. After he gets bitten by a werewolf,
he doesn't give a fuck.
He gives in right away, and that's kind of like the werewolves in this movie almost play by vampire rules.
Yeah.
where you indulge in the bloodlust and the lust.
Yes. And meanwhile, I just want to segue and then we'll come back to this.
Yeah.
But the B plot of this entire movie, it kind of like reminded me of Psycho a little bit because you have these two characters who are trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah, Terry and Chris who are trying to figure out what's going on.
And they're hanging out with our boy, Dick Miller.
Yes. And so while they're investigating, they discover a lot of really weird things. Like, for example, the body of Eddie has gone missing.
Right, because they go to the morgue,
yes,
right? Yeah.
And the door has been like completely pounded on and everything. And then they go to the bookstore, which we talked about earlier with the bookstore owner. And that's where they find out that a lot of the traditional werewolf myth, real. Silver bullets, fire, absolutely. But they can shapeshift at any time. And
if you don't kill them right, they come back to life.
yes.
He says, I think very colorfully, these things are harder to get rid of than cockroaches.
Yes. So it's interesting because Chris and Terry are the people who I would describe most as being the ones who they've seen a horror movie before. Because while they're not necessarily like, it's not as silly as, well, I guess werewolves exist now and we just believe that. It's also, they are detectives and they are coming to this kind of conclusion that whatever is happening, it's at least emulating a werewolf. You know what I mean? Like the fact that they're watching the Wolfman when she calls, and the fact that when she gets off the phone, Tammy's like, Bill just got bitten by a wolf. And then they immediately, like she immediately hightails it up there.
Well, it's funny / infuriating that Chris makes her go by, like, well, I got some reports due to the like, go with her.
This
dude.
is another time in this movie where it's just a man being dismissive of what's going on,
right?
Because Terry goes and he's like, I got some reports, go by yourself, don't worry about the fact that, like, you know,
not to jump ahead too much, but it's only when she's, you know, in danger, fucking capital, all caps danger.
And even then,
when he takes it seriously.
She is literally like, hey, I saw a werewolf. I cut off his arm with my own 2 eyes. And also, Eddie's here. He's here and he's alive. And he's like,
did he, though?
Pull out his file. I don't know that I believe you. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Hey, guess what? If I called my boyfriend and I was like, hello, I'm seeing werewolves and they're happening, and he didn't jump in the car and get here, he wouldn't be my boyfriend anymore.
Get his ass.
He would still apparently be the producer of our show, but he wouldn't be my boyfriend anymore.
Listen, it might be awkward, but we got a show to run, a show business.
We have a budget. He fits in
a
our
budget of nothing.
It's $0. It's him living in my apartment.
It's actually in the negatives.
Good. We can discuss that off mic. Anyway.
Austin's like, actually, I've been meaning to talk to you. You owe me some money.
Probably do. But yeah, I mean, it's just like a lot of very dismissive men and a lot of women who like know what's going on. Like even the doctor, honestly, with this werewolf colony, kind of like very naively comes in and is like, hello, I'm going to change you all to your very core because I want you to be better people. And at the end, they're just kind of like, no.
We don't want that.
Like, you can't tame what's meant to be wild, Doc.
John Carradine says that. That was also what I considered to say in the opening. I have the quote saved. You can't tame what's meant to be wild, Doc. It just ain't natural.
Yeah. And so it's really interesting to kind of see the people, and like I don't mean to make it like a man versus woman thing, because obviously in that specific scenario,
and I don't think it's that kind of movie either.
No, it's not. But I do think that you have to contend with the fact that if you're starting a movie out with gender disparity of like rape and sexual assault, people are going to draw those parallels. And I don't think it was necessarily not meant, because especially with Bill and Karen, their very specific storyline is based on the fact that like he is a man, and stereotypically men have these primal urges more than women do. And so, you know, while she's trying to recover from this terrible thing that's happened to her, he's like, so when we doing it?
Right.
And so, yeah.
Oh, dang, that sucks. But you know what else sucks? I'm horny.
You know what else sucks? Not you right now, Karen. Sorry. Shouldn't have said that. Anyway, this is not the point.
Yeah, stop being such a Karen.
Yeah, Karen. God. Anyway, you're like dealing with stuff. But I do find it really interesting. Also, this is kind of, again, like I know this episode is kind of chaotic because we're all over the place, but I do find it really interesting when they get to the colony that it really highlights the difference between this like self-help world of LA versus like the old world ideals. So you have like Bill and Karen and the doctor who are LA types. They have really modern ideas about men and women. Like she works out of the home. She has her own maiden name. She uses it at least professionally. Bill stays away from meat. He's not eating. He doesn't eat meat, which is a very like, especially at the time, new kind of thing. Like vegetarianism was not exactly like a super big thing at the time, you know?
Right.
And then meanwhile you have like Marcia and the other, obviously we find out later, werewolves who are very primal, old world. The
John Carradine character is very, why can't we be like the old ways?
Yeah.
Why do we have to hide?
Well,
why? Yeah.
And even, what's his face? I can't think of his name. But Bill's like catches the rabbit and he's like, well, I'm not going to eat it. I don't eat meat. And he's like, well, if you don't eat meat,
It's
then
Marsha's brother.
Yeah, Marsha's.
But like the brother I don't remember the name of.
Yeah.
Because I remember the name of the other brother.
Yes. But he's like, well, if you don't eat it, then you're just wasting it. And he's like, well, good point.
I never thought about it like that. Like, that's a direct quote.
Exactly. So, I don't know why I cannot think of that one's name.
Well, he's the one that gets his arm cut off by Terry.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember his name. I don't remember his name either, and I watched this movie last night. So it's not like it's not fresh in my mind either.
Yeah, I don't know what.
But there are a lot of characters in this movie that make an impact,
mm-hmm.
too. There's not really any characters that feel like, oh, they're just kind of there. You know what I mean? Like, this movie does a really good job with the characters it has and making them feel like fleshed out human beings, even the small roles.
Right, yeah. I definitely think, because he's the one also who, like, leads them on the hunt.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what
right.
I mean?
That's
TC.
right. Yeah, I was not going to pull that out of my
TC
ass.
Quist. Found it. But they're like, yeah, TC has a nose like a bloodhound. And he's kind of the one who, like, outwardly presents as a wolf, even in human form, more so than anybody else. Like, he wears the wolf pelts over his, like, shoulders. He's very much more animalistic, even in human form, which I find interesting. But yeah, it is like just the way that there is a difference between Bill and Karen and also the other couple who's up there with them, who are very obviously kind of in the same situation as Bill and Karen, where they're later additions. Like, they obviously came to the colony because, and she even says it, like, before I found the doc, I tried everything. I tried Scientology, I tried primal screaming, like all of these things. She's very much like, you can tell that at least the wife was very susceptible to, like, the pop psychology of the day and was just kind of trying the latest thing. Yeah. And then, unfortunately, the latest thing happened to be werewolfism. And so, or fortunately, I guess, but...
depending how you look at it.
Right. They are very, different from the original werewolves who live there and are part of this colony originally.
Yeah. I want to circle back to Bill for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were kind of like talking about how once he turns into a werewolf, he's just indulging in everything.
Yeah.
And we brought up the point that he's a vegetarian, not after he gets bit.
No, I mean...
Terry brings Karen and Bill some food, and he's nomming on something with a bone. I don't remember what it was. And she's, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I forgot your... I've completely forgot about your vegetarianism. And he goes, hey, when you're hungry enough, I'll eat anything. This is delicious.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that he says that, because to me that was very much a parallel to, like, him and Marcia. Like, when I'm hungry enough, I'll eat anything.
When I'm horny enough.
Yeah.
Werewolf sex.
Exactly.
I woo.
And so I did want to talk about the end really quickly, because Karen says that she thinks they killed Bill. Do you think they killed Bill?
Well, Chris had the silver bullets.
No, I'm talking about She says she thinks like the colony killed Bill.
Oh, I don't think so.
I don't know why they would have. I don't think they killed Bill. I think maybe she doesn't know how werewolves turn. I don't know. It was a very interesting like throwaway line that I found.
Or maybe
fascinating.
she thinks being a werewolf is death. Kind of like how being a vampire is death.
That's fair. Yeah.
So maybe while Bill wasn't technically like dead, maybe she's dead.
Yeah.
He's dead to her. His old self is dead. Maybe she means it's something along those lines.
Yeah. The last 20 minutes of this movie or so, by the way, are just absolutely insane. Filled with twists and turns. Filled with crazy shit.
So this is, what are we considering the beginning point of this?
I would say when Tammy enters the cabin. Terry enters the cabin. I keep wanting to call her
Terry? Yeah, Terry.
It's Terry. I keep wanting to call her.
In the file room? Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about when she finds out who Marsha's brother is.
That's right, and she cuts off.
Yeah, and she cuts off TC's hand.
For me, once she enters the file room, that's when it really
That's
gets
super
going
fair,
for me.
but like it all kind of comes from the fact that she's running from the cabin.
Terry is...
Because she finds out that Marsha's other brother, who's not TC, is Eddie Quist, who is Eddie the Mutilator, I think.
Bum, bum, bum.
So...
Even though I said Eddie Quist like 19 times already.
Right, but... So from there, it just pops off. Like, this movie is very... we talked about this a little bit off mic.
Yeah.
Kind of some pacing issues, but until it doesn't. Like...
Yeah, third act
is
perfect.
Crazy, beautiful. And so she runs to the, like, she cuts off TC's arm. We have this gory, bubbling, boiling, like, arm scene where it transforms back into human. She goes to the file room. She tries to get a hold of Chris. He doesn't believe her, like we talked about. And she comes face to face with Eddie. And this is the first time we see him the whole movie. We've heard his voice. We haven't seen him.
But I don't know if we know if it's Eddie just yet, because he's in his like pure werewolf form.
No, he is human at first.
No, he's human for Karen.
Oh, you're right. Oh my gosh, yeah, you're right. So he is in his werewolf form. So we don't know it's Eddie yet. But
and this is a very violent scene.
Yeah.
And also kind of funny because she's looking through the files and then he takes it and it's like such a good scare.
Yeah.
Because you're not expecting a werewolf hand to come from out of frame.
No,
and take the
very
file
good.
from her and she's like, the fuck? And then it's like close up into the werewolf snarling and then it's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And he just smacks.
And he just violently mutilates her. Like, yeah, the werewolf smack is crazy, which is something you said, Jeremy. But yeah,
And she, like, it's a long scene. She puts up a fight.
Yeah, she puts up a very good fight, but I mean, like, you don't even see the extent of it when Karen finds her. You don't see the extent of it until she's, like, in the barn later. But she, like, not only is her neck gone, but, like, you can see her rib cage.
Right.
It's, like, insane. Meanwhile, Chris is on the phone. He kind of hears this go down.
And
so
he's like, oh, wow, I should have done something.
Right. So then he calls the police, realizes they're not going to be helpful, goes back to the bookstore, buys the silver bullets. He's like, hey, I don't even know how much to charge for them. And he goes, bill me, and walks out.
Yeah, Dick Miller's like, the fuck?
So funny.
It's so, yeah. I don't even know how much to bill me.
So good. Then we get the confrontation with Eddie and Karen.
Yeah.
And that scene is the scariest to me in the whole movie.
And that's where the famous, like, pioneering transformation scene takes place, too.
And it's just like the transformation scene. If you haven't seen it, again, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast. We are like an hour in. I don't know how you got here. But the transformation scene goes on for just a little too long, but in like the best way. Like you're forced to sit with it is what I mean. Like it's not.
Well, it's one of those things where I feel like the filmmakers are like, holy shit, this is so good. We can't like cut our babies here. Like,
and I wouldn't have either. I think it's so good.
Right.
It's so disconcerting. You spend the whole time just like kind of staring open-mouthed in silence. Like,
and no one's ever seen something like that before.
Right, exactly. Very iconic. And just like the way that it's not Eddie's such an interesting character to me, Eddie Quist, because he obviously like has these baser urges as a werewolf, but the urges he has are so human in like the darkest way. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like serial killers and serial rapists exist. Like, I mean, as terrifying as that is, like they do, and we have so much like.
He's just like an exaggeration.
Exactly. Like people have
of that.
We spend so much time like kind of analyzing and psychoanalyzing these types of people, and it's really interesting that the reason for his urges and his acting on his urges is just this like primal like calling inside of him that his, I mean, we'll say culture, because of the way that he was raised as this werewolf, doesn't ignore. They won't,
Right.
They don't ignore it. And so I just find that to be really interesting, because that's so much, it's so much more insidious than like, oh, this is a mental illness. You know what I mean?
Right.
Mental illnesses, especially because like that's kind of what this whole thing that the doctor is trying to get involved in here is he's trying to use this pop psychology to be like, you guys are just like mentally ill people who need to be rehabilitated and learn not to act on your urges. And that's not effective. That's not working on the werewolf population, believe it or not.
Right. Right, exactly. The people who enjoy their bloodlust.
Yes. It's just, yeah, it's a very terrifying scene, not just because of the transformation, but also because of what it means for the character of Ed Quist.
You can't tame what's meant to be wild.
Exactly. And then she throws acid on him, which is, of course, horrifying in and of itself.
But pretty cool.
Yes. Tries to get away, can't get away, goes to the barn, has that big confrontation. Meanwhile, Chris shows up, has another confrontation with Eddie.
I love the part where he's like, I got silver bullets. The one guy's like, bullshit, gets shot.
Yeah.
He keels over.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all like, I think it's Dr. Ragnar who goes, no, they're real.
Yeah. And then, so like, you think the ending of the movie is going to be this big ending where all of the werewolves end up on fire, and then that's not the ending, because there's 2 more twists after that.
Right.
And it's crazy. But the ending of this movie, like you said, third act, no pacing issues, crazy wall-to-wall action, crazy twists and turns, great time had by all.
And like, I wouldn't change the first 2 acts, because they set everything up and it gets you ready for that third act.
It's really, yeah, I mean, that was the thing is, I feel like Jeremy and I spent the first bit of the movie being like, this is kind of boring, and I don't want to like not like another movie that we talk about on the podcast, because I feel like I've kind of ragged on just a couple like that we've done so far.
Well, there's only one this month.
Yeah, really, there's only one that I wasn't a huge fan of this month, but I was like, I just don't want to talk. I don't want to be like the negative, like naysayer of all these movies on this podcast. That's not what I want to be typecast of. And then it was like the third act was so good that I was like, oh, okay. And you're right. Like, you can't change the first 2 acts.
Right.
Like, you just kind of have to like accept the fact that the third act is where you're going to have your fun. And that's okay.
It's like the first half. Why is this a classic? The second half. That's fucking why.
Yeah.
Let's go, Howling, a whoop whoop.
For sure. Did we want to talk about the final twists and
We
turns?
have to talk about the ending.
Yeah.
Because it is such a insane and bleak ending to a movie.
Yes.
Which, this is not American Werewolf in London episode. That also has a very bleak ending. But this one is a bit more... American Werewolf in London's a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
This is oh, fuck.
This is a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
So Karen is a reporter through and through, and she finally gets on the air at the end to give her statement.
I'm getting chills thinking about it.
And she gives this beautiful speech. And again, I tried to find it. I couldn't. But if you haven't seen it in a while, I recommend going to watch it again, because it is really just this beautiful speech. And then at the end, she goes, there is this community and you need to know about it. It's going to sound crazy, but I have proof. And she transforms, because she got bit in their escape, into a werewolf, and shows everybody on TV. And then Chris, with his gun, with his silver bullets, shoots her. And they cut to commercial immediately.
And you get reactions from a whole bunch of different people. It's like that scene in Elf
It is, yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes. And so then, yeah, it zooms in on this diner and you get all these reactions of like, wow, special effects are crazy. And then they're like, nah, she turned into a werewolf and he shot her. And just says it so casually.
And the one guy's like, you're plastered. And he goes, doesn't mean I'm wrong.
It's true. And then they just kind of changed the subject. And the guy at the end of the bar is like, hey, put on like what does he say? A flank steak for me and a burger for the lady. And then she asks, how do you want your burger cooked? And it zooms in on Marcia, who has escaped. And she says, looking at the camera, rare. Ooh. And the movie ends. And
over the credits, it
crazy.
just puts a burger on the grill, and that's when the credits come in.
And Jeremy was looking at his phone, and he missed it.
In my defense, the Tigers released their lineup.
Haven't they been playing for like 10 games now?
Yes.
Yeah, they have a different lineup every game, Austin.
I don't know.
It's also not a valid excuse. The movie was over. I could have watched for 20 more seconds.
There's 162 games of baseball season, and he felt like it was really important in that moment to focus on the Tigers.
I don't need to know how baseball works. All I need to know is go Tigers.
True and valid.
Did we get a touchdown? Go Tigers.
We lost today, but that's...
Go Tigers.
But we won the series, and that's what matters. Anyway, moving on.
Go Tigers. Detroit. Woo woo.
Ow.
But the shot of Dee Wallace in like she's got the werewolf underbite coming up. She has that single tear.
And like, I know this is not the point, but she's a very cute werewolf.
Okay, can we talk about a mild criticism?
Okay.
I can't take that werewolf design seriously.
Well, I know she looks like a fucking puppy.
She looks like a mix between a Yorkshire Terrier and Chewbacca.
I know, and it's adorable.
It's really
I looked
cute.
back and forth
And
between her and my cat, and I was like, you guys are the same.
And I'm like, is this the same movie that showed me a fucking, like...
Austin, this was the
Wolf
end of the
from
movie.
Hell?
They didn't have much of a budget left.
Rob Bottin is a miracle worker.
That's fair.
But I kind of think this movie has a really dark sense of humor.
True.
And I wonder if that's just...
I think they wanted to make
her...
her...
puppy.
I think they wanted to make her a little bit extra pathetic before they killed her. I really do.
But the shot of her, that single tear when... Because it's like, there's so much you can... maybe she knows she's going to die.
Yeah.
She does know she's going to die. But
right.
Maybe that's why that tear's coming out. Maybe she's in pain.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think Eddie's in pain when he turns.
Well,
I think Eddie likes it.
Eddie's fucking psychotic. I think it's very obvious by the sound effects that it hurts when you turn, whether or not you
But he wants to
enjoy
turn.
it. Yeah.
And she didn't, but she
did it anyway.
And then we talked about like the different people watching from, but there's a bunch of different. When the producer's like, cut to commercial, and it goes to a fucking dog food commercial.
I know, it was crazy.
But then there's like Dick Miller's watching. He's like, oh boy. And then there's like kids watching, and the kid's like, mom's like, what are you watching? The news lady turned into a werewolf.
Yeah.
Like it's a great ending.
It really is. It's a wonderful ending. So in terms of what this movie gave the world, this movie in conjunction with American Werewolf in London, because they are twin flames, really caused the resurgence of the werewolf genre. Without this movie, Teen Wolf doesn't get made. Without this movie, the rest of the werewolf movies in the 80s don't get made, which there are.
They probably don't make Silver Bullet.
Yeah.
And this, in addition to American Werewolf in London, both of these films changed what werewolves could look like.
Yes.
Because I feel like werewolf movies prior to these two, it's the Wolfman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
But now you get different variations on werewolves, like Dog Soldiers and Werewolves 2024, which we talked about earlier this month.
Right.
Have designs very influenced by the Howling. There are other movies I've seen that they're like, yeah, this guy watched The Howling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think one example of that is The Company of Wolves, which is also from the 80s. there are just a lot of, like, there was kind of a 40-year gap where there was not very many successful werewolf movies. And this really brought it back into, like, the modern age. And not only that, but just kind of brought the monster itself back into the forefront of people's minds. I mean, vampire movies were always kind of part of, like, the culture, and I mean, there have been ebbs
and zombie movies.
Yeah, there have been ebbs and flows with all of the major monsters, but they've always been there. Werewolves are the one that kind of went away almost completely for a while, and then came back, and now, like, you know, you have this modern lore of, like, werewolves and vampires being enemies, which doesn't just exist in, like I know the most popular modern interpretation of that is, like, Twilight, but that's, like, a... Underworld is... Yeah, I mean, it's definitely Twilight is the most popular one, but that's my point, is, like, there are these, like, interpretations of them as rival monsters, like, in Underworld, and in, you know, a lot of different modern horror and horror-adjacent franchises, and I do find that really fun, because it doesn't always, like, happen. And it wouldn't have without The Howling.
And The Howling set up careers for so many people, mostly because a certain Steven Spielberg watched that movie.
Right.
Who, as I mentioned earlier, watches Piranha and The Howling, loves both of them, gives Joe Dante a job on the Twilight Zone movie, gives him another job on Gremlins, you know. Mm-hmm. Steven Spielberg, you know, what'd he direct? E.T., who's in that? The Queen of the 80s, Dee Wallace.
Right, yeah.
And, you know, The Howling also kickstarted Rob Boutini's career, who we kind of mentioned earlier. He went on to do The Thing. I believe he did RoboCop as well. Mm-hmm. So, The Howling, not only does it stand on its own, but it really kickstarted the careers for a lot of people, a lot of beloved people, especially for horror fans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
I do think, that being said, it does get overshadowed. Not only, I think it gets overshadowed because, like, even though it's, I really like this movie, but it gets overshadowed by American Werewolf in London. I think that's the better of the two. And I think that's the popular opinion on the matter.
I still think that this is probably the second best of the decade.
Oh, definitely. Like, this is, if it wasn't for American Werewolf in London, it would be the best. Mm-hmm. And it would be the best of the year if it didn't come out in the same year, you know?
Yeah.
But, like, I think of, like, Joe Dante's filmography. There's a couple Joe Dante movies I like more. You know, I think of Dee Wallace's filmography. That being said, this is still a very good movie.
Yes. Agree.
Is it time for our superlatives?
It is time for our superlatives.
Super.
So who would you save?
Puppy Chewbacca?
Fair.
Actually, no, I lied. I would save Terry.
Me too. That's who I put as well. I would also save Terry. I think she's a really big badass, and she carries a lot of the movie.
Especially getting to that third act.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, here's
Chris
the thing.
did her dirty.
Like, I love Karen. Love you, Queen. She's dealing with, like, her own shit. She's kind of in the middle of all this, trying to handle Bill and his, like, newfound scratches on his back and nonsense. Terry's, like, out here solving mysteries and shit.
Right.
And that's, like, important. So,
getting shit done.
Would save Terry. What was your favorite scare?
I think I mentioned it earlier, but when Terry is in the filing cabinet looking for the things, and the werewolf just takes it from her.
And then bitch slaps her.
And then, bam, bitch goes down. Werewolf, super bitch. That's a Scream reference, but like a very obscure Scream reference in case listeners don't know.
My favorite scare is Eddie's transformation. I just think, like...
And that's right after the other.
Yeah, I just think, like I said, it just goes on for slightly so long in the best way.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, you have to sit in that discomfort and watch it happen, and I love it.
Yeah, that is a great scene. Like a horror history scene.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah.
What is the next...
What is your...
My phone turned off.
What is your Tony Todd Award for movie MVP?
So...
I feel like I know who you're going to say, but...
I feel like I have to... So, my pick for the Tony Todd Award for movie MVP Tony Todd, rest in peace, one of the greatest character actors ever.
Mm-hmm.
I have to give it to one of the other greatest character actors ever. And there's some contenders here,
Yeah.
you know? I mean, but I'm going to go with Dick Miller.
Fair.
I love Dick Miller. He's great in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
He's so funny. And it's like, you
Yes.
trust him.
Yeah.
He's kind of grumpy, but you trust him. That's why you
Immediately.
trust him.
You're
Yeah.
like, that man knows things.
Exactly.
He may not believe anything he's saying, but he's not selling me shit.
Right. And it's like, if I saw the Mothman and I went to this store and he's like, you didn't see the Mothman, you ain't in Point Pleasant. I believe him.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to hunt down Bigfoot and he goes like, then you're going to have to learn the Cotton Eye Joe.
I'd learn the Cotton Eye Joe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Icon.
Mhm.
And an award named after an icon has to go to an icon.
Fair.
How about you? Who is your Tony Todd Award for movie MVP?
I said Dee Wallace.
Icon.
Icon. I mean, yeah. I think, she's phenomenal in everything that she's been in, but she does such a really great job of portraying somebody, like, who's very strong, but also very traumatized.
Like, strong and vulnerable.
Yeah, she's very brave for putting herself into this situation, but she also, like, it's a realistic portrayal of somebody who has gone through something fucking awful. And I think that is a really hard line to toe without making her seem, especially at the time that this movie came out, like a helpless victim.
Mm-hmm.
And she does that really well. She's not a helpless victim. She's trying to get better, and she's trying to, get back to her life.
Dee Wallace, Scream Queen, really.
Yeah.
She's in The Hills Have Eyes.
Mhm.
She's in The Howling, obviously. Cujo.
Mm-hmm.
She's in Critters. She's in the Rob Zombie Halloween. She's in a lot of
Yeah.
Rob Zombie movies, actually.
Yeah.
Like, she loves working with Rob Zombie,
Mhm.
it feels like. And she's in a lot more. She's in a lot more stuff. I mean, I know we'll talk about Dee Wallace on this podcast again,
Probably.
but just for now, what is your favorite Dee Wallace performance?
Oh, good question.
The new Lassie.
It's probably not the new Lassie. It might be Cujo.
I mean, it's a hard question. She's in a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking through. I'm like, might be Cujo. I'm looking at like her, not discography. What's it called?
Filmography.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's probably Cujo. But like, she has so many. Like, I'm literally looking at it, and I'm in 2012, and I'm not even close to the end of like her reign.
Queen.
I know she was in the new Little Mermaid, but that
She
was
is Andy Bernard's mother in The Office. That's my favorite performance of hers.
that's true.
I didn't know that.
She was.
I didn't know either of those facts.
So now you know.
I love it. I think she's fantastic in E.T.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a film that's so close and dear to my heart. But I'm also going to say Cujo. She is so good in Cujo.
That's a good one. Here's the thing, is like almost every single, like, that's dramatic. Not every single, but a lot of famous, like, horror actors also guest starred in Supernatural because Supernatural was such a long-running show.
Right.
So
and actors need to eat.
So, like, yeah, and actors need to eat. And, like, of course, they want to get all of the horror actors. So
Yeah.
I'm going to say her performance in Supernatural, which she had in one episode in Into the Mystic, is my favorite performance of hers. Of Dee Wallace's.
Fair.
I'm not being serious. It's Cujo. But,
I love it.
So is the score better than Jaws?
No. But I think it's the best score of the month.
I think that's probably true. So this score was done by Pino Donaggio, who is an Italian composer and musician, and he's done a lot of horror movies. He did Dress to Kill, Body Double, Seed of Chucky, Death Proof, and obviously The Howling.
We heard of one of his scores during Mommy March.
What?
We heard one of his scores
We did?
during Mommy March.
Wait.
I'll give you a hint. Starts with Care, ends with E.
We did? Did he do Carrie?
He did Carrie, yeah.
I don't believe you.
He did.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
But I did so much research on these.
I know you did.
I don't think he did Carrie.
Friend, pal, buddy.
You're right. He literally did. That's crazy. What? Well, I'm sorry that I didn't mention him by name. When
I
we did
got
Carrie.
you.
But anyway.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're still figuring out like what this segment is.
Well, I've got it down pat now, but at the time we were brand new.
Right.
I was but a wee lass in podcasting. Now I'm
All those
old, jaded.
Jaded?
Kidding.
Damn.
So one thing that I did want to mention about this score that I thought was really funny was when they go on the hunt. Like Bill goes to the guys and there's circus music playing in the background. I don't know why I find that so fun, but like especially considering the fact that, you know, this is about these guys who are werewolves and they're giving into their primal urges. I think that was a really funny detail, and I just found that really delightful. So I do agree. I think this is probably the best of the month. He also did have like one of the only scores earlier, apparently, even though I didn't know this, that like we rated as close to Jaws.
Yeah, because I think Psycho we said was better.
Psycho
than
we said was
Jaws.
better.
Carrie
we said was
on the
par.
level.
Yeah.
This
So-
one I wouldn't say is on the level of Jaws.
No, but it is the
But
best of the month for sure.
And it's a really good score.
Yes.
Like
we
it's
said,
creepy.
we've said this over the last couple of weeks, but one of the stipulations we're looking for is, can we quote the motifs? Can we sing along with this? And this is definitely one we can quote the motifs from. So it is a good one.
And there's some good like low brass writing when he's transforming. It's very monster movie.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes sense. It's a monster movie that feels like a monster movie. But, like, I mean, we did 5 different werewolf movies.
Yeah.
And this is the only score that really feels like a classic monster movie score.
Yes.
Because werewolves felt more like an action movie score.
Mm-hmm.
Teen Wolf's score wasn't really there.
No, it wasn't really there, and it's also like the soundtrack, which I guess we could count is very much more like teen movie. Like it's not really trying to appeal to the horror movie audience.
Right. Ginger Snaps was edgy 2000s.
Yes.
And Wolf of Snow Hollow was more artsy.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of comedy scoring in there too, but like
For sure.
a 2020s.
Yeah.
What you would hear, you know.
This is a classic for sure.
Yeah, this is one that kind of stands out.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like this score.
I agree.
But is it better than Carrie? I think Carrie's the better.
I think Carrie's the better score for sure. Okay, a fine addition to your collection. Do you own it? How many iterations?
I own it on 4K, but my collector's edition came with a Blu-ray.
Love that.
But yeah, I got the 4K of The Howling. How about you?
I would love to own this movie. I think
You can get it on 4K.
I could get it on 4K. I think like I said, the last part of this movie is just so many twists and turns, and it's just very good and fun. So, absolutely.
Alrighty. Are you ready for our Letterboxd reviews?
Yes. I will be honest. I haven't actually put this on Letterboxd. Yes. Because I watched it this morning and I was typing up show notes.
Oh. I'm cool with that.
But I am going to officially, after we get done recording, put this on Letterboxd. I'm going to give it 4 stars, which I wasn't expecting to when I watched the beginning of it. But the end really just pulled it together so nicely. And I put much darker than expected. Very real analysis of the beast within.
Ooh.
Which is not as funny as my normal reviews, but I like it.
I like it though. So I gave it 3.5 and a heart.
It's because you hate me. It's fine.
I might bump it up to a 4. I might. Like, this conversation has been, as the kids say, really fun.
Yeah, they do say that, actually.
But
Got
but my Letterboxd review, I put in a quote: "You can't tame what's meant to be wild, Doc. Just ain't natural." And then I put, "The moment when Terry unwittingly hands the wolf the file is one of my favorite scares ever. The movie takes a bit to find its rhythm, but once the third act hits, it's all rock and roll from there.
Real. Good. All right. This is the last of our exclusive Werewolf Month award. Scale of 1 to 10. Would you pet?
Well, there are multiple wolves, right?
Yeah.
So my answer is going to change depending on the wolf. So can you tell me the different wolves and I'll give you
Okay.
a rating?
Eddie.
10.
Okay. Marsha.
10.
Bill.
10. 20.
That was Puppy Chewbacca.
30.
Okay. I don't know any of the other ones.
10.
Okay. That's great.
I love these werewolf designs.
They're great. Would you pet them?
Yeah, because here's the thing. They will realize I am a friend.
You said this 2 weeks ago, too.
I like werewolves, and I just think they would like me.
That's fair. I said probably a 2 for anybody wondering. Which is like not a 0.
It's not. What about Puppy Chewbacca?
Puppy Chewbacca's an 11.
Okay.
Because she reminds me of my cats.
She's so cute.
She's very cute. With her little eyes.
Oh,
Eddie, on the other hand, with his like
he's scary.
half acid face. No, thank you.
Real talk.
Actually.
That is a scary wolf.
Mm-hmm.
And he's all like snarling. I love it. Still time.
All right, Austin. Would you die?
Yes.
Why?
Because these are scary motherfucking werewolves.
True. And
And
you're
they're-
going to try to pet him.
Well. If they accept me into their pack, I'll still probably die. Not because they would kill me, but just because I shouldn't be trusted with that power.
That's fair.
No, I just feel like, yeah, I wouldn't be poking my nose into danger like Terry, but if Eddie wanted to munchie on me, he would munchie. If Marsha was like, I'm gonna eat you, I'd be like, thank you.
And that's how that goes for you.
Yep. How about you? Would you die?
No. I'm not going to something called the Colony that has cult written all over it. So I will be staying in Los Angeles, where the only wolf that could get me is Eddie, and I will not be going where Eddie goes to claim his victims.
Fair. Very fair.
And that's the end.
That concludes Werewolf Wednesdays.
Crazy.
This was a long episode.
This was a very long episode. I didn't expect it to be this long, I won't lie.
But the Howling is so good.
It's got a lot of history,
yeah.
and a lot of cultural impact, so it's
And a
always
lot of,
fun
like,
when we get stuff
themes.
like that. Yeah.
You know what? If this movie came out today, you know what we'd be saying about it? We'd be saying that shit's elevated.
That shit is elevated. You're so right.
There's so much to
Yeah.
unpack with this movie to bite into.
Ha!
So I liked it. What was your favorite film of Werewolf Wednesdays?
I mean, I'm biased for Teen Wolf, so that would be my favorite. I think in terms of the new ones that I'd seen, Ginger Snaps is far and away my favorite, with the
I
Howling
love
being
that.
a close second.
I
What about
love
you?
that.
What do you think about favorite one from this month?
I think going into the month, I would have said The Wolf of Snow Hollow, and I still very much enjoy that film. But after kind of rewatching them and watching werewolves for the first time, I'm going to have to say The Howling.
Yeah.
Like, shot back up.
There's no wrong answers this month, which I really like.
I really enjoyed all the movies. It's hard to argue with a classic like The Howling, but yeah, I was glad. I haven't seen Ginger Snaps in a while. I haven't seen Wolf of Snow or Howling in a while. I don't think I've seen Teen Wolf. I said that in the episode.
Yeah.
Like, I thought I did, but I don't think I did. And then obviously neither of us saw werewolves.
Right.
So it was fun to kind of like do all these different types of movies
Agree.
with one similarity
Right.
going through them. So do we want to talk about what we're doing next month?
Let's do it. Because I think for once, this might be the month where I have the leg up on you. for most of our movies.
At the moment of this recording, I've only seen one movie we
Okay,
picked.
I was gonna ask. We're not gonna spoil them. We'll still go like week by week with our reveals. But next month's theme is Macabre May, and it is all gothic horror.
Yes.
Which is my bread and butter. Love me some gothic horror. Really, really excited to dive into this month. Like very excited. So.
I'm excited because I picked werewolves.
Mm-hmm.
So something that you picked, and
Yeah.
after that it becomes themes we pick together.
Yeah, I was going to say from here on out, it's a lot less. Oh, spoiler alert, I've never seen this movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's still definitely some that are going to be new watches, which I'm excited for. But I am really excited for this month because I think this is the genre that I definitely know the most of, and I'm really excited to kind of dive into it with you.
And there are 3 films I have not seen, so I'm excited to watch movies I haven't seen yet.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
And there's some bangers, there's some classics.
Mm-hmm.
There is one where it's like, Austin, you haven't seen that? Really, bud?
I know. There's one on this list that I've been trying to get you to watch for like literal years, and every couple months I would be like, hey, have you seen this movie? And you'd be like, no, I should put that on my list, and then you wouldn't watch it. So I'm really excited that now you have to watch it.
And the fun thing is, I might be thinking of the same thing, and I might not be.
That's fair. I've
So-
probably tried to get you to watch several of these movies.
But there's one I'm thinking of where it's like everybody's like, Austin, you'd love this movie. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I believe it.
Mm-hmm.
On paper, I would, but I'm gonna find out.
Yeah, you will.
So I'm excited for it. You want to wrap this up?
Let's wrap it up.
All right, this is a long episode.
Yeah.
First, I have a little announcement to make. This should air April 30th.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys are listening to this on the day of, tonight on the Would You Die YouTube channel, you can see the premiere of my short film Spider. It just finished its festival run. 17 official selections, 5 nominations, 3 awards. Starring Spooky Madison, produced by Doug Lemelin. Spider creature effects by Chris Dunsmore. Music by Josie Palmer. And written and directed by yours truly. There's more people, but I'm very excited. I'm proud of this film. I'm excited to see how it does on YouTube. It is premiering at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight. If you're listening to this on May 1st or June 7th or 2028,
It's already
it's
out.
on YouTube. Yeah,
It's so exciting.
you look it up. It's called Spider.
Yay. We'll definitely post on the Would You Die socials and stuff, so you won't miss it for sure. That's
I'm
awesome.
really excited.
That's so exciting. I'm so excited to watch it.
And I am Austin Torres. You can follow me at Austin M. Torres on all the social medias.
I'm Anneliese Petersmark. You can find me at Whimsawillow on all the social medias. And then you can find Would You Die Show everywhere that you find social medias and also podcasts.
Yeah, this podcast is produced by Jeremy Lippitt, who you can hear now.
Yay.
The music you hear in the beginning and end of each episode is composed by my friend Josie Palmer. The graphics we post every week, those are made by my friend Alec Gibson at Crosshook Creative. And yeah, next week we are going into May.
We are.
I can't think of a hint for it because I don't remember which one we're doing.
Macabre May. Get ready to be sleepy.
Ooh.
That's my hint.
It's Inception. Try not to die.